Invite the commissioners in, take your seats. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. We will begin our work session a little bit late, but I'll give you a little explanation of that after we get through our preliminary items here. Commissioner Crawford, would you please send the invocation?
Bow with me, please.
Lord God, how grateful we are to be here this evening. God, we thank you for living in such a beautiful part of your creation. God, we count it a privilege to be able to serve the people of Sullivan County. And Father, may we do it with your leadership and your guidance. Bless this time that we have together. All this we pray in the mighty name of Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Larry. Mr. Pat Shaw, would you lead us in the pledge?
Face the flag, please salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. Here the commissioners are in their seats, so Madam Clerk, would you take the roll? Please record the presence of your smiling faces. Has everyone checked in? I think I like Mr. Jones, Mr. King. I believe we've got everyone checked in. Madam Clerk, take the roll.
24 present.
Thank you. Before we get into our public comment section, I'd like to make just a couple of comments that will help us kind of know where we are as we go through things. I've seen a lot of people passing out information to commissioners, and that's a good thing. Information is key. But I don't know how many we had, but it's important that the clerk have that information too. So if you have passed out things to the commissioners and you haven't dropped one on the clerk's desk, who is seated to my right, Ms. Jacobs, would you please see that she gets a copy of that for our record? I know we'll have times in the future where people will want things distributed to the commission, and we find it to be more orderly if we go through my executive assistant, Ms. Taylor, to pass those things out and get commission. And we're always happy to have the help. We just need to know what's being passed out. So if you'll do that for us. We've got a little delay here tonight in starting. I always have 1 or 2 minutes, but hardly ever 15. And the reason for that is that we had 3 additional PowerPoint programs that we were asked to load, and that puts a significant pressure on our computer operator here to do that. And we have normally had a request that any PowerPoints that are to be loaded should be delivered to Bobby Runyon in the Council Budget's office by 3 o'clock, because it does take some time to get those things loaded and to get them right, and we want you to be able to make your presentation as accurately as possible and with every aid we can give you in communicating with our commissioners. So if those of you in attendance have that opportunity to do that in the future, if you will help us out there, I know everyone will appreciate it, and we'll be a little smoother in our startups. I believe that's all the housekeeping I have right now. Maybe have more later. Next order of business is public comment. Commissioner Cross, would you deliver the sign-up sheet? As he works his way forward, we have that sign-up sheet there. Not everybody knows it. Thank you, Andrew. Not everybody knows it. Not everybody sees the sign. If you didn't get signed up, please, at the end of the session, raise your hand. I'll recognize you. As you see on the board, we ask that our public comments be limited to 3 minutes for the convenience of the crowd and to make things go quickly. I hardly ever drop the hammer on 3 minutes, and if you're making a point, I'll try not to interrupt you. But if I give you a little of that, please tell us, okay. First person up is Mr. James Parsons. Mr. Parsons?
Yes.
Would you give us your name and address and for the...
James K. Parsons, 320 Clark Street, Kingsport, Tennessee.
Thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
I was talking about Miss Frazier addressed y'all last week, week before last, about Sullivan County Jail and the $1 million Pop-Tarts, which they don't give you Pop-Tarts. They say a Clover Valley Pop-Tart from dollar store for like $14. They just put down, you know, she was complaining about working 40 hours a week. If you're a healthcare provider, should you work 40 hours a week?
Well, we don't, Mr. Parsons, we don't deal with personalities in our public comment.
Well, yes, I realize that, but she made a public
But
comment
you did,
about that.
Let's go on from there.
Okay.
Please refrain from that.
But, you know, I work in Canada, but I live in Tennessee, in Sullivan County. That's my official thing. And I run into people in Canada say Sullivan County sucks, you know, because you go to jail here for nothing, you know. And that's my thing, you know. I met you talking. I went to the jail ad hoc committee and everything, you know. You know.
I remember.
Yeah. New Polk County Jail has like 4 million people, and they don't have many people in jail as Sullivan County has. And it's really, you know, just to make money, like that Miss Frazier said, well, they get medicine on your commissary, but they charge you $1.50 for an aspirin, which would you get 100 of them for $1? You know, she's going on about that. They take out your money, you know. If you got people there, which I might be there, I don't care, you know. Because I believe, you know, Sullivan County, you know, it's sort of, ain't about innocent to proven guilty or anything. It's about getting people on probation. You know, I said that at the ad hoc committee, you know, and they all denied it. But if you can't give them enough money, you go to jail. And that's why you got 990 people and 615 people in jail, because you can't give them enough money. It don't matter how much you give them. You give them $1,000 a day and it ain't enough. And they find another excuse to add more onto it. Like I said, I went to Canada and people, you know, oh, you ever Sullivan County? Yeah, I went there, but I don't know why I went to jail for 8 months. And they let me out, and I don't know why that happened, you know. And people in Canada are saying that, you know, that's, you know, my opinion on that, you know, that's pretty pitiful. You know, like you're tough on crime and stuff, you know. Ain't like that. I get pulled over, I travel, I go to all 50 states, I go to 4 countries, you know.
We're gonna need you to wrap it up, Mr. Parsons.
Okay, but that was just my point, you know. You come to Sullivan County, you know, let's lock you up. Forget about the Constitution. I'm an 8-year veteran, and everybody wants to. And I don't give a crap about that. Don't take me for the service. I think they cut that out of Times News. I wrote on the banner about that. I said, thank you for allowing me to serve. You know, I ain't begging you or nobody. I done it, and I didn't. That's what I wanted to do.
Thank you for your comments. Now, let's wrap it up if you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
All right.
Next we have Rodney Pageant. Mr. Pageant, you're recognized. You've been here, and good to see you back. And if you'll give us your name and address.
My name is Rodney Pageant. I'm with 1125 Cotton Shoals Road, Lubbock, Tennessee. Here tonight to vent, but I'll try to get in as respectful manner as I can. Obviously, I've come up here a couple of times about school issues. It's been my main focus, what I've been into. But I do have some frustrations. First, I guess I will throw out there that there was a recent editorial in the Kingsport Town News about grandstanding. I don't want to accuse everybody here of grandstanding over the West Ridge High School, but I want to point out some obstructions that have been made.
You're talking to the mic.
Sorry, yeah, I apologize. So first off, I would like to say that if we weren't really at on a go level with this thing, number one is we should have never voted it through at this level. We knew where the location of the school was at that time. If the road was really that big a concern, it should have never got through here. If it got through because the cities wanted their stuff and the counties were going to get left kind of holding the bag, the city folks should look after the county a little bit there, okay? But now that it's through, we've got contracts signed, we've got skin in the game. It would be nice if we could come together as a community and actually figure this out. And that, again, I would request that you, as a board or a set of commissioners, would get together with the Board of Education. I've always called for a meeting where you guys could hash things out, put stuff out in public, and work through your differences. Just to kind of throw out a few of the concerns that I have. Going back to, let's say, August of last year with the sewer issue, that was bid out at East. It came up, I think, in November. I think it got delayed because the sewer agreement kind of got thrown involved in there and everything. And I came the first time at a work session in December, heard some of those sewer agreement concerns, came back a week later, I heard a couple of commissioners pretty roughly handle Ms. Rafalowski and talking about how we should have went for 6-inch and 8-inch lines when that is an engineer's call, not a school director's call. And especially considering that would be, if she had come up here with a 6 to 8-inch line and all they needed was a 4, then the opposite argument would have been made that why are you building communities with your sewer line and wasting our money. So that kind of came up. And from my understanding, there was actually a Mattern and Craig official here in November that could have answered some of those questions about lines anyways. January went pretty easy. February came and we had those accusations kind of come up again about how we went as a school, or as the school went up and said, hey, we have this much money, can you tell us what you can give us as far as the sewer line goes? And those are pretty rough accusations unless you have something to back them up. So I know that there was a resolution put out to have Mattern and Craig give an estimate again for 6 and 8-inch lines or whatever they felt was necessary. When that comes up, I would really appreciate if somebody would have the tenacity to actually ask the engineer if the school board came up to them and asked them in that way. And if they did, great, you got them. If they didn't, maybe you guys should look at how your tone kind of reflects into this argument as well. Also, there was the superintendent vote, the retention vote. You know we're looking for a superintendent right now. That's going to make that harder if we got to turn around and put them on a retention vote pretty quick. They might not be as apt to want to join our community here, which just adds a little bit more stress. And then, you know, now we have this resolution about wanting to halt the school being built, which, you know, I'm all for it. I'm all for West Ridge High School, and I do want it to be exactly what we were promised. I'm not there with you. I understand that they've had shortfalls, and they did dip into the funding, reserve funds, which they, I think, started reserving because they were worried they were going to do that. I can't speak for them. You can ask them that. But moral of the story is, yeah, it'd be great if we could spend that on teachers and things like that. But our schools are almost 40 years old. Our jail was almost decertified 5 years ago. We have highways falling apart. We need to, as leaders of the community, start staggering some of these things so that we are able to deal with them intermittently rather than all of it being heaped up at once, which is what we're doing right now. And I know that some of y'all are around not raising taxes and things like that, but with the new jail and everything, I think it's happening. I think it's intellectually dishonest not to think it's going to happen. Sure, if they build a school and it comes out another $4 or $5 million in shortfalls, are they going to come to you and ask for money? I don't know. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll have to. I'd probably rather do that than lose 20 or 30 million because we didn't follow through with it and we halted it now and it became more in the future. So I'm sorry. I appreciate you guys giving me the time to rant. I hope I did that respectfully, but I would still just encourage that we get together and hash these things out in a more amicable, you know, instead of coming to this board and having them drug up and whatnot, just call a meeting where you're all together and you can work through the numbers, figure it out, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Paget.
That would be what I was going, thank you.
I believe we're about ready to start the hashing. That's the last name I have on the public sign-up sheet. Mr. Parsons, I can't give you 2 times, I'm sorry.
10 seconds, that's all I asked for.
I'm sorry?
10 seconds. 10 seconds. That's all
You
I
need a
asked.
budget.
Do what?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. Come up here.
Oh, 10 seconds, that's all I want to say, 10 seconds.
No.
10 seconds.
Nope,
Yeah.
nope,
Okay.
sorry. Got a rule. I don't have many rules, but just can't do it. A good lawyer friend of mine,
Yeah.
last year I had to sit him down.
Dan Street, he's a
For
good.
the same
lawyer,
reason.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Appreciate you coming now. Anybody else in the audience like to speak? No. Bless your heart. Anybody else in the audience like to speak to the commission on any subject? And we appreciate all comments and opinions. Seeing none, public comment section is over. And next up, we have presentation of resolutions. And I'd like to remind everybody that we try to keep this casual. We try to keep it where everybody has an opportunity to comment. We try to keep it non-personal. This is a work session. We're not going to vote on anything tonight. We'll have some resolutions before us that are for first reading. We have a great attendance, and I try to recognize our elected officials that are here. Mayor Fire Robin, thank you for coming, and your board members. Appreciate them. Appreciate the school board members being here with Director Rafalowski, Assistant Chief Cottrell, thank you for coming tonight. Good to have you here. And I know I missed somebody, but we do welcome you all. With the Commission's permission, I know there are a lot of folks here on a couple of resolutions. And with your permission, I would like to move to the front a couple of those resolutions so that all these individuals might not need to sit here until 10 or 11. If you're, without objection, we'll do that. And there's 2 that we have a lot of folks here to speak on and or to hear. And so I will take them in order. Items 4 and 5 on your agenda are what I'm speaking of. And item 4 is resolution by Commissioner Jones. And I would, again, remind everyone that this is a work session. That I think each committee has heard these resolutions. We've spent a great deal of time on them, which I think was necessary. Lots of questions were asked. This is a work session to ask those questions that you didn't get to ask during your committee meetings. But I remind you that once again, we'll have an opportunity next Thursday evening to peruse any additional information that you've got or to ask any questions that you might have that come up tonight. So, Mr. Jones, I'm going to recognize you on item number 4 on our agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. You have laid on your desk, should have a sheet that is amendment number 1. It doesn't say amendment number 1 on top. It'll say that. It's a single sheet on your desk. And in the committee meetings, I heard a lot of suggestions. If we had this information, then, you know, we'd like to see that. So try to go back and do this amendment. And what we're addressing is the actual amount that wasn't in the original resolution. And this is to authorize the Industrial Development Board of Sullivan County to negotiate and accept from CenterPoint or an affiliated entity payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot agreement, in order to assist CenterPoint LLC to meet its obligations regarding the Tennessee Department of Transportation Grant Agreement number 180144, including engineering, NEPA, the EAP, public utilities right-of-way acquisition in the amount of $1,621,776 with respect to the parcel of land of Sullivan County map. And that map, you've seen that. And finding that such payments are deemed to be in furtherance of the public purposes of said industrial development board as defined by Tennessee Code 7-53-305. As you go on down through it, everything right now is speculative as far as the schedule of time of development, but the fifth one down, fourth one down, may none of this may extend beyond a term of 10 years, and the state has built in a 3-year construction and installment period. So you're looking at 13 years. And you go on down and it says not to exceed that specific amount. And go over, and I hope we addressed some of the questions that came up. Construction has to take place for those taxes to come in to pay this back. So there's 10 years of reasonable construction plus reasonable construction of 3. And the agreement added, as we had a request, if it was done in 8 years, if it was done in 9, if it was done whenever we reached that amount of tax coming in, the resolution is deemed, we're through, it's closed. It's paid. And that's what that wording is supposed to say in that section 3. The board's agreement with CenterPoint or an affiliated entity concerning payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes shall contain a provision providing that all pilot agreements shall terminate once the combined total of the pilot agreements reaches $1,621,776, and may contain such additional administrative provisions not inconsistent with the resolution as the board deems appropriate. So I'm submitting that as amendment number 1. We said we would amend it to try to answer the questions that were being asked in the committee.
That will be filed as amendment number 1 at the regular meeting of the Sullivan County Commission, and can only be filed then. So it's example tonight, and it'll appear on your desk in your packet next Thursday evening. Now, I know there are people that want to speak on this. Generally, I ask the sponsor if he has people that would like to appear before the commission, and I think
I'm open to. We had a 2-hour discussion the other night. I hope we're not going that again, because I think most of the issues have been addressed. I have had auto dealers call me and say, "Is this about the Ford dealership?" No, it has nothing to do with the Ford dealership. Well, and I told them it's about this road. The road, the Tennessee Department of Transportation grant came about because when they looked at it, TDOT said that this egress and ingress was so close to the interstate exit that they wanted it moved up. It does take care of that, and they were willing to put up $960 million, I think, up to $960,000 up to $1 million, but it was specifically $960,000.
we have Commissioner, have a question, Sam. Commissioner Vance.
Sam, on the resolution amendment on number 4, where it says as CenterPoint has requested the board enter into a separate tile agreement with CenterPoint or affiliated entity. when you say or an affiliated entity, if this is approved, this is for the other sub-parcels, which I guess I'm assuming I'm referring to be the restaurants, the office buildings, all that. What do you mean by after the car lot's done and the road is built? I read this, and I may be wrong how I read it, that you're asking this commission to give the IDB board the authority to enter in a separate pilot agreement with CenterPoint or affiliate entity, which I would infer that could be a different owner of that property. Am I reading that correctly?
No, you're reading that correct when if you go out there and you buy a piece of that property from them, and you bring the blueprints down here, you say, I want to build this building. Down, you brought up the impact software. That person would be paying property tax, and once we've collected to that amount of property tax, we're through.
But that says for 1.6, but
You've got the only way you can collect property tax. I mean, we can go on what it is out there today, 6,100 and something, is the current tax rate on it. But as you develop property, those values go up, and we start getting additional property tax. And when it reaches that amount, then it's over and void. It doesn't matter who's paying it, but if it's coming out of that development to us, then that pays for it.
well, I guess the question I'm asking, are you asking for a blanket resolution that would give the IDB board the authority to enter into a separate pilot for the other parcel of the real estate or an affiliated entity? Would that mean like a new owner of that property?
I don't know, that's legal attorney terms. Is the attorney here, he's the one that can answer that. Huh?
Did you write this resolution?
I wrote it.
Let's,
I wrote it with
David,
the attorney's guidance.
we,
I apologize.
And I guess I've still got the floor. The problem I have with that amendment is I think it has been determined that not all tax abatements have came in front of the legislative body, and we as a commission do not have a policy to recognize what we have agreed to as being something that qualifies for a tax abatement. So if you take the merit of the resolution, the 1.6, you're extending it, still giving authority to an IDB board to do a pilot that may take place 2 or 3 years from now. And I'll ask Mr. Street to address that.
Dan, I don't know if you're familiar with this. Are you familiar with the resolution?
Yes, I am.
Would you go ahead?
Could I ask Mr. Vance again to be more specific?
Okay. On the amendment resolution where it says on the fourth, whereas CenterPoint has requested the board to enter into separate pilot agreements with CenterPoint or an affiliated entity. So if we pass this resolution, is we giving the IDB board the approval to file another pilot for the restaurant and other development without coming in front of us?
Well, I think that you just need to clarify whether you are or are not. That's a good question. If you're concerned as to what exactly is the intention, the resolution just needs to be amended to clarify one way or the other. If you are authorized, if the question is by this resolution, are we authorizing additional pilot agreements, and you don't want to do that, then you need to say that should there be such additional pilot agreements for subdivided parcels, it needs to come back to this body for approval. I mean, that would be one way to go about it, but you just need to clarify
Then let me ask you if that resolving clause, if you'll read it for me, resolution authorizing, if you'll read that for me and tell me if you think that does what Mark is saying. I believe it
Chairman,
does.
where you at?
Resolution authorizing the Industrial Development Board of the County of Sullivan to negotiate and accept from Center Point LLC or an affiliate entity payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreement.
Well, it just needs to be clarified. Part of this resolution reads as if there's one pilot agreement with CenterPoint, but then I could see where Commissioner Vance is reading into that fourth paragraph where there's going to be subdivision of the parcels and additional pilot agreements, and it just needs to be clarified. I mean, I don't know the answer of what the intention is, but we do need to clarify it now it's been raised. It reads up at where the mayor mentioned up at the top as if there's going to be one agreement, one pilot agreement. But when you get down to the paragraph Commissioner Vance is talking about, it reads as if there could be additional agreements.
Well, as I say, this is an amendment. Mr. Jones, you work on the amendment. We got a week to do it.
We can, and I think if you read the first resolution paragraph,
Well, if you
it's all about whether there's one or two, it's limited to that specific amount, dollar amount.
Well, could you just add that to paragraph 4?
Sure.
Down there in paragraph 5, it says, provided that the maximum combined value of all such pilot agreements shall not exceed $1,621,776. Could you just copy and paste that same statement and put it up in paragraph 4?
Sure.
I mean, that would seem, but that's still gonna leave open the question of whether or not you're giving them authority to enter into additional pilot agreements, but if you are, they're gonna be capped at that 1.6 million.
Right. Yeah,
But the point I'm trying to make is, this thing is easily amended right here, right now. And you don't have to ask those questions down the road. If you have a question, just amend it now and clarify it.
We can amend it when it's final.
I'll accept that.
Thank you. Some folks disappeared. Not physically, off my screen. I'm sorry. Any other questions for the sponsor? It's not that I wish anybody disappeared. Any other questions? Mr. Broughton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. It was brought up at our work session, and like you said, we don't want to go down that road again. But one thing that was brought up was on a pilot, you can't use that money to build a road. But that seems like this is the main intent for this. Did you find out whether or not you can use that pilot money to build a road or not?
The money to replace this has to come through the property taxes that are collected on that property. That's where the pilot is involved, is to collect. You have to put it's actually the whole piece of property. We took that number out there, the 22.6. But it is the piece of property, and as they generate property taxes, as they go up, the property taxes come back.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know that addresses the issue whether or not it's legal to use that money to build a road.
Yes,
It is. Dan, is that?
that's what I was told it is. That's how you recover.
Mr. Reed, I'll recognize you. I believe a commissioner asked for your opinion.
Well, you know, I'm not sure that it really gets that particular, but I'd have to think that question through. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to lay out exactly what the question is. I'm not sure it's as easily answered as it seems. I mean, the pilot agreement is not so much set up to address where the money's going. It's set up to allow them to recoup certain monies, but I don't know that it talks in the statutes about where that money goes, whether it goes for a road or the foundation of a building or water utilities or what. I don't recall it being that specific. But if that question needs to be answered, I would just have to do a little bit more thinking on what the question actually is.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Mr. Akers, you're recognized.
I'll be completely honest. I feel like I've made it through life for 45 years pretty good. I am completely lost at where we are right now on this resolution and everything. And it's really sad that we're even at this point in time. You know, two men who have done really well for this whole area are stuck in limbo over some bad policy decisions, just the way they are. And, you know, we're talking about one resolution that's now on its third co-sponsor, so I don't know if that's a legitimate resolution, because everybody keeps taking their name off of it. Now we got a whole new amendment on something that just went quiet, because I don't really know why. And at the end of the day, I'm not trying to stop a development. I mean, there's two people we need to be excited that they're here to develop. I mean, I've said it all along. I'd love to see this new development on that area. I'd probably benefit more than most people sitting in here. But this is the craziest resolution I've ever seen. I'll just be honest with you. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, it did not go in front of the Bristol IDB board because it did not meet the guidelines that they have. So that's a fact. It's a fact that unless it gets Bristol's blessings, I'm not going to vote for it, unfortunately. And it's a fact. I'm still just dumbfounded that we can't get this right. I mean, we've had 3 meetings, lawyers writing the resolutions that, you know, I mean, come on, we're better than that, people. And I'm still, and Sam, I've talked, it's nothing against him, but we're still bringing one commissioner against another commissioner against an economic development area in our county. You know, I would do that to Kingsport, and we know there's a whole host of those coming, you know. And if Kingsport's not on board, I'm not going to vote for them, you know. And so I think at the end of the day, y'all are just going to have to gut check yourselves. I mean, you all look yourselves in the mirror and all this, and let's do it right, you know, and everything. And I'll be honest with you, I have no idea between these two things what we're voting on, you know, and we should be better than that.
Mr. Eckert, maybe I can help remove some confusion. We can't officially act tonight, according to the rules I've lived under. You can only officially act on a properly filed resolution in regular session with the Sullivan County Commission. Mr. Jones has indicated tonight, and I think you're right, I think there have been several iterations of it, but the original resolution is still the resolution of record. I think there's been several iterations of it because the sponsor and wanting to change the resolutions to require the votes to where it would be acceptable to Bristol or Kingsport or Sullivan County Commission or you as an individual commissioner. And all that's happened in committee meetings and in this work session. But nothing really happens for real until next Thursday night at 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock when this will be heard. So right now, you have a resolution that's properly before you. You're discussing changes to that resolution. And it may well change again, as Dan indicated, before next Thursday, because it won't be properly filed. The amendment will not be properly filed until it is properly before you. And Mr. Jones is going to have to say, I propose amendment number 1 for this resolution. He's going to have a second for it. Under your rules, normally have to have a second under the rules that you operate under. He has the ability to amend his own resolution. So that's where we are. And again, it may change again. We have some folks lined up here. Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sam, of course, this is the 3rd time now that I've heard various arguments about this proposal. And some of the audience have made a very simple argument against it. They said that they believe that it's unfair because it's it subsidizes their competitors, be they auto dealers, other hotel owners, or retail owners, and therefore gives their competitors an unfair advantage. It's also a point that all of us would have to explain to the people we represent. What would be your response to that?
Well, I think a couple of things from hearing the discussions also in here and spending a few hours doing that. The TDOT, Tennessee Department of Transportation, when they looked at it, they said, yeah, we like this opportunity to develop this, but we don't want to see. The road actually goes right on the edge of the property. I don't know if you saw the presentation the other night, PowerPoint. It's right on the edge of it, coming out right where the exit is. And that's when they looked at it, said, to the best of my understanding, it needs to be moved away from that close proximity to the exit. They don't want to build clover leaves anymore for the same principle. So they said, yes, and we will pay up to this amount of money, 50% of the actual road cost. What they've asked for in this is that it include the engineering, the EPA study, the utilities that have to be put in before the road's actually built, and a piece of right-of-way to that. And so that would, and by the discussions that came out from the committee, that's why this amendment was created, to make it specific to that amount. And the other thing was, if it is specific to that amount, if it's paid off, you know, it says not to exceed beyond the term of 10 years plus a reasonable construction and installation period of 3. So it's really looking at 13 years. But at any time, it shall terminate once that combined total is paid back through the taxes. And it's done. It's over with. What took place, that they were granted, per discussion by the city of Bristol, through the comptrollers on the state tax, and we had that discussion from an attorney, financial advisor, I don't know if he's attorney, financial advisor, that the state and any entity that it's involved in Bristol made the agreement, they're going to grant back through the state tax. Has nothing to do with local sales tax. That still comes. But through the state, they granted a sales tax, and I don't know for the words agreement or abatement or what, but they will get back a sales tax on every car that's sold through the state sales tax. And that's what the comptroller's office, that's one of their agreements. And Bristol has the option, and they can set it at whatever percent they want to. They happen to set it at, what we heard the other night was 9 and 10. That was their option. They can do that. Kingsport can do that on anything that they want to. You know, that is it. To me, that's where the value to another dealership comes from. You know, they're going to collect. I had one call me today. Yeah, I collect those sales tax dollars, state, and I send them in. And what they do with it in Nashville, what percentage comes back to the local entity, you know, I don't know. I just know what I collect and send in. And then if I get part of it back, that's coming back to me.
Well, Sam,
am I answering your question?
well, you've explained very well the mechanism here that you would put in place to help
Right.
make the development occur.
Correct.
But what you've not addressed is the perception of the competitors to whatever this end state would be, that these folks have received an unfair advantage. Therefore, they're in
Where
business
do you
to
think
compete
the
against.
unfair advantage is coming from?
Well, that you facilitated the road for one thing.
Well,
And that's
and
part
the-
of the cost of development.
And the state said, yeah, we're gonna pay half of it. And there is that, because it does, somebody laid a map on the footprint of the, I guess that's the border region. There was a carve out already that took place. Right, well, yeah, it says the Pinnacle, and it shows where that would be in that. Yeah, if that's an unfair advantage and we're able to help develop and get new, the only reason I took this, agreed to take it, was to get new property tax into the county. That's, because that's what we function on.
I'm giving you an opinion, but it appears that the city of Bristol was trying to strike a compromise between encouraging new development, but not providing an unfair advantage. That's just sort of the way I see it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Vance, you're recognized.
If this property was anywhere else besides in the border district, it probably wouldn't even be a consideration for a tax abatement or a pilot. And I've spent a lot of time on this and looked at it. And the conclusion I've came up with on this resolution is for many years this county has had resolutions, and we basically passed on the responsibility to the IDB board if we give a thumbs up for tax abatement. We as commissioners, we need a policy in place, guidelines, so that we can go by. So if it doesn't follow those guidelines, it would not even be sent to the IDB board for consideration. This was sent to the city of Bristol. They have guidelines. We do not have guidelines. If we approve this, we're setting precedents going forward. And I don't like voting against development. I don't like voting against our counterparts in Bristol, because it sends a bad signal out of this chambers. And I don't like doing something that is putting other businesses at a disadvantage of competition. I deal in competition every day of my life. I understand that. I want everything on the even playing field when I compete. I almost feel that we need to table this resolution next week, and we need to establish guidelines to be used from here going forward, that every person comes in front of us understands our guidelines, so that it would not even be here if we had done our job and had guidelines. And I'm not taking anything away from the IDB board, but ultimately, it's a responsibility. Starts here. The process is supposed to be, it comes here. We're to agree based on the format, and it goes to the IDB board, and the IDB board basically sets up a pilot agreement. And then the property becomes property of the Industrial Development Board while it's in this tax abatement. So on the front end, we have no guidance to help us make a decision here, today, or going forward. So I can't support it, and it's not against the developers, it's not against anything else. It just doesn't feel good to me that I have treated anybody fair, and I don't want to be sitting here in a couple of months and have somebody else come and ask for the same thing, and next thing I know, I do it again. And then I have other people upset. So that's my opinion. That's what it's worth. I want to ask for a table motion next month until such time that we can come up with some guidelines and we can vote on it, how to deal with it going forward. And then if they want to resubmit that at that time, it's within our guidelines, then I'll feel better about voting for it.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Ms. Blaylock. Commissioner Blaylock.
Yeah, that's right. I've had quite a few calls from car dealers today. I mean, I think my phone rang all day. Sorry. I think my phone rang all day with them. Now, it may be because I've been out looking for a car, about, no, I mean, before, it's been a year before I just got a car. I made my decision, but they are still calling me about stuff. In this little town, I feel like I'm too loud on this. Anyway, I had a lot of calls today, and all of the people that I talked to said, you are opening up a can of worms. You're not only going to open up a can of worms for you dealerships, you're going to open up ones where people are selling used cars. Oh, they just gave me all kinds of reasons for why you don't want to do this. Then I got to thinking of my own personal deal when several years ago I opened up a business in the Fort Henry Mall. I poured the concrete. I had a very successful shop. I went on to the Bristol Mall and stayed in Bristol Mall. I went to the Claypool Hill Mall. And none of those places had a dealership. And I can't imagine that retail would want to go into a place where there's a car place, because when my husband and I go look at cars, we go look at cars. He's not going to let me go to Chico's and start to shop. He's going to tell me, okay, you've got to go, and we're going to go, what are we doing today? We're doing a car. We might go eat, but we're not going to do anything else. And if I'm going to have a retail establishment, I'm going to put it across the street at Pinnacle. I'm not going to put it there, and I just think we're not thinking this out properly. And I'm like Mark. I'm for him for the fact of just putting it, tabling it until we can find out more about this and everything like that. Because I think that what the car dealers told me today, we are opening up a can of worms, and that's a good statement. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner George. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Sam, I've got just a numbers question. When you spoke, you said that the $800,000 from the state paid for half the road.
It's 960. I don't know where the 800,000 ever came from.
The state is paying for 50% of the road.
Right.
Which is 900-some thousand. And then this resolution is asking for $1.6 million. So that more than covers all the road, all the other infrastructure. I mean, we're a whole lot more than building this developer. I mean, it's just in your numbers.
Well, it says including engineering and NEPA, which is 155. You got 962,800 from the interstate. 155,000 of engineering and NEPA. 418,800 of public utilities, and right away of 85,165 or 76. That totals 161,621,776.
In addition to what the state's paying, or including what the state's paying?
Right. The state was paying 962,800.
So this is almost a $2.7 million road.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? To build this one
Right.
road for this developer is $2.7 million.
TDOT standards and everything, and plus the infrastructure that goes in before you don't want to put in a road. We've all seen it where roads been built and then they come back next month and start tearing it up to put in the infrastructure.
Well, the developer, I'm sure, would not do that,
But
I mean,
this has nothing to do with any infrastructure going to the out parcels.
But
It's specifically
building a quality road with all the benefits for a developer through their property to make it feasible for them to profit on several parcels instead of going from the outside.
That's what TDOT's recommended.
I really like development, but I can't do it on an existing. If all this was new business to this area with new job creation, I probably would be looking at this different. I'm kind of on board with everybody else, which is very hard for me to say if we help one developer with infrastructure that's an existing developer, then every existing developer that wants to develop in Sullivan County, we have to be willing to help with infrastructure. So if I want to build a new Blue Ridge Properties, I think I should be able to come over here and say, I'm going to desert one and build a new, but now I want you to build all the road for my development. I just think we're opening a can of worms with existing businesses unless they meet a guideline where we are, you know, like a whole nother facility or plan. So I'm just, that's kind of where I am.
I think the jobs, what I've, in a projection that I've seen was 255 new jobs.
With the car lot or with the
No,
whole project?
total in the project. No, 21 in the car lot. There has to be.
Not the part that's already existing, but for.
Turn on your, I'll let you talk, just turn on your mic so we can hear you.
Well, what I was.
Okay, cool. Go
I
ahead.
did.
Your
I did.
mic's on.
Thank you, Mayor Venable. I turned myself off. If there was a way to do this without carving out the existing business and doing the pilot for only new business, and I don't think your numbers are gonna work, but I could be on board with that, but I can't see making the main attraction an existing building of a business to do it. I said, I don't have necessarily a problem with the out parcels getting a pilot program, but for an existing business to be given that advantage, that's, you know, and I understand your numbers on that. So that's my, if there was a way to carve it, I would look at it differently.
Thank you.
And I'll turn myself off again.
You may or I will. Commissioner Hunt, you're recognized.
I really want to see development in all the county, and I definitely appreciate and have a lot of respect for Jim Street and Mitch Walters and all that they've done for this community. In particular, things that they've done in Bristol, I truly do, and I want to see this develop, and I'm thankful to see the new Ford dealership just down the road from this property. The thing for me in this whole thing is, if there had been no other, well, it's already been incentivized. It's in the border region, and so they've got the 420 charter, which is a significant amount of money that's going to be coming back in. They've received a significant amount of money from TDOT. I mean, it isn't like they haven't been assisted. And that sort of hangs large for me. I mean, I think it's fantastic that they've got the 420 charter and that 3.7% on taxes, sales tax coming back in. That's great. I think that TDOT has given them almost $963,000 for a $2.7 million project. It's really fantastic. Not every developer has that. That seems to be a pretty rich blessing from my perspective. I also think, you know, when developers buy property, they sort of know that they have the potential for outlay. And I just read over this letter from Dennis Phillips with the assurance in this that if they don't get this pilot, they won't do the project, which is not what we heard in the night. That sort of thing for me is, I don't like ultimatums. If you're gonna buy the property, it's your property. You can do with it what you want, but to hold us, to say you're not gonna do it if we don't give you the pilot is, or even threaten that in that letter, if that, I'm just reading that, it's bothersome to me. The other part that's bothersome in all this to me is, all of us have had these discussions about, you know, we're in a budget session and trying to figure that out and looking at different costs, and we're talking about giving $1.6 million away, taxpayer money. I can't do that. And the other part of it too is asking what criteria did the IDB use to make this determination, and not being able to get an answer other than it's done by case. And the other night, Ms. Brown did a great job with her presentation, said everything should be done on its own. Well, the reality is nothing happens in a vacuum. All these things touch. Every project we do touches on another, and what happens in one part of the community impacts the rest of the community. And I think this would set a precedent if we gave this pilot. I would love to give them a pilot. if in fact they hadn't received any other incentives, which they did. They've already received it for the dealership that just opened this week. So every car that's sold this week already, you're gonna get money back already. You build another dealership, you're gonna get money on that one. Great, that's fantastic. It's awesome. But then to come to us and ask for 1.6 million seems to be, I can't do that. I can't do that to the taxpayers. And I also know that there's that rub between the city and the county, city of Bristol. And to be honest with you, that stuff's gotta go away. We're never gonna go forward if we don't work together. You know, the IDBs maybe in the past of Kingsport and Bristol have done things where they've reached into the county without communicating. They shouldn't have done it. And for this to come back, I've heard that a few times. That sort of stuff to me is petty, and it doesn't help for us to move forward as a community. And so, I think it's pretty clear about how I feel about this resolution going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Any further questions for the sponsor? Now I'm ready to move on to the next resolution. There being none, we're moving on to the next resolution, except, and I want to recess for just a second. We did have something passed out, and it's not identified. Mr. Gibson, Scott Gibson, are you still here?
I am.
Could you come to the center? And I have your card, and I know who you represent, but I don't know who this piece that you passed out represent. I'm assuming City of Bristol. I just want to make sure before we put it in the record.
No, I represent the City of Bristol. I'm their financial advisor. They asked me to speak and calculate the amount of incentives that have already been provided to the developer so that everyone can be on the same page. I answered some of these questions other night, and talking math sometimes gets messed up.
You've answered my question.
Okay.
And that's for the record, because it's going to go in the official record. There's nothing on here that indicates that it comes up from that.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll do a card line, I may put it in the board meeting. We're back in session. So I'm going to call up item number 5. And that is Commissioner Glover's resolution. We'll handle that now, Herschel. If you will, you're recognized on item number 5.
I think after all of that, won't we just sit here for 15 minutes and look at each other? Just reboot. You know, what do you think about that?
I see enough of you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to respond to one of the public comments. I've been on this commission for 6 or 7 months. And a lot of these commissioners in here, I did not know. I've just known them for 6 months. And the first resolution that these commissioners done, and we were involved in, was SRO officers for the schools. And we worked together, and we got that done. And the second resolution that we worked on for the sewer agreement, we got Sullivan East High School hooked on to the sewer, or going to be hooked on to the sewer, at no additional cost to the Board of Education. Not a dollar. Not one. And it was done correctly. It was done proper. So, out of all the commissioners in here, there's the other 23, I don't know of a one of them that's grandstanded about anything. But now, if you want to label me as grandstanding for trying to save the taxpayers of Sullivan County money, hell, I'll take it. I'll take it. No problem. And I'll move forward with it. So, with being said, I'd like to move on with this resolution. This resolution reflecting the Sullivan County Board of Commissioners' request that the Sullivan County Department of Education consider putting the construction of West Ridge High School on hold. Additionary matters improve in scope and sequence of events pursuant to concurrent construction is founded and known to be exact. That's what this is about. Nowhere in this resolution does it say that we're asking for $1 of money from the school department. Nowhere in this resolution does it say that we want to take that money and put it on the jail or build a jail. This is far from that. About a week ago, I asked Mr. Avalowski for some numbers, and those numbers were provided for me. And as soon as I got those numbers, I provided them to every single commissioner in here, or tried to. We sent it by email. And the ones that didn't get it, I apologize if everybody's got it. I do have some copies here if you don't. But everybody seems to say that there's been no communication. And every single month, we sit here and we wait for somebody to come and talk to us. And Mr. Avalowski, you've been awful good about coming to talk to us. But we shouldn't have to ask for numbers like this when we're dealing with $140 million of people's money. Every single month, there should be somebody here providing these numbers for us and letting us know what's going on with these two projects. And what I brought up last week at the last month, excuse me, at the commission meeting was we would like to have numbers to show the taxpayers of the county what kind of situation that we're in. And after going over these numbers and looking at them, we're $7 million over budget on two projects. $7 million over budget on two projects. And last night I sat here during the budget meeting and listened, and I heard some commissioners say last night, and some of them for the first time, hey, we've got some budget problems here. We've got to talk about these. Well, in my opinion, this right here is a budget problem. It might not be this year, but I bet you it will be next year. And that's what this resolution is about. And Attorney Street did make the comment last month that this is a non-binding resolution, but this resolution is putting the school department on notice that we're not going to sit here and take this anymore. And we shouldn't. We shouldn't have to. The board, the BOE chairman came here 6 or 8 months ago or whatever before this commission took oath. He's not been here since. And we shouldn't have to invite him. He should voluntarily come here and talk to us and give us reports and keep us up to date with what's going on with this kind of money. So, being said, I would love for Ms. Avalowski to come up to the podium if she would. I'd like to ask her some questions, and I hope some other commissioners will ask her some questions about these numbers that we've got. And I guess what's really alarming to me is, in District 5, like I stated the other month, we're going to lose both of our middle schools, and potentially, and I'm going to ask her about this, potentially maybe both of our elementary schools. And I don't know about you guys, but in Piney Flats, it's the fastest growing area we got. There's more money being generated in Piney Flats right now than anywhere in the county. And when you've got new people coming in to build, and they ask where our school is, and you're going to say, well, it's 9.5 miles up the road. You think you're going to stay? No. So, Mr. Avalowski, I appreciate you.
Commissioner, if I could, before I recess to hear Mr. Avalowski, we've got a commissioner who'd like to make a comment or has a question, if I may.
I can wait till after recess.
Okay, that'll be fine then. Then I will we will recess and recognize Dr. Avalowski. We appreciate you being here. I know there are other people with you that can also provide information to the commission, and so I will leave it to you to call those up as you like, or I will. And so, Commissioner Lover, you're recognized.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Avalowski, I've got a copy of the school bonds here. And in the second whereas of these school bonds, I'm going to read that to you, and I'm sure you've probably seen it 10 million times. But it says, whereas the citizens of the county have had the opportunity to participate in the public planning process and understand the need to seek consolidation of certain school facilities, the acquisition of property for and the design, construction, and renovation of additional school facilities for the Sullivan County School System. And I guess the first question I've got on this is, in these numbers that you provided for me, not on any line do I see money that's allocated for our renovations. And I've got a copy of the facilities plan here. And I want to go back to that if I have to, but I'm sure you've seen that 10 million times too. And one of the commissioners there last month asked me where I got these numbers. And the 25 million, and I'm just going to throw these out there, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, or I would like for you to give me the right numbers if we're close. In this facilities plan, it called for $8 million in renovations for Sullivan East High School. And it says extensive renovations. You know, I'm not talking about a backstop for a baseball field, or I'm not talking about bleachers. I'm talking about renovations to the school building itself, for the everyday environment for our children to sit in. And that was supposed to start it in 2018. And I have noticed, like you said, there have been some renovations there. Backstop, field house, some of that stuff. But that was supposed to have been done in 2018. We are in 2019. And they've not been, nothing done actually to the building infrastructure itself. Was that right?
Well, I would disagree with that comment, that we did put a new roof on that building.
Partially.
It was pretty much a whole roof. There was just one small section that we didn't put the new roof on. That was right at $1.3 million for that new roof. What I would, if I may, Commissioner Glover, because of one of the people that are here with me, what I would like to do, if I may, is pause for just a minute.
Sure.
And let the architect do a short presentation, and I would like to do that because she needs to leave.
Okay. Which is this? What is this in regards to? Is this the high school?
It's in regard to the high school and the middle school.
Okay.
And Ms. West, you're recognized to come forward. I know you have a plane to catch to.
She is actually leaving to Denmark. She is going to meet her new grandson. So I do, and I promise you I'll be here. I've got, as well as myself, I also have our finance manager, Ms. Deloach, our project manager, Charles Hubbard, our construction manager, Michael Royston, and also Steve Wilson, our structural engineer, is here. But I would like to give Ms. Architect, our architect, an opportunity to go so that she can leave, if you'll permit that, Ms.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Herschel, for allowing us to do this for Ms. West. And Ms. West, I've got some Danish money that I didn't get spent over there.
There you go.
I wish I'd brought it with me.
I'll trade you for next time. You know that.
Okay.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the comments
I
from Mr. Raslowski. I am excited to get on a plane and meet my first grandbaby, so I do appreciate you.
Well, we appreciate you being here with us tonight, and I believe we've got your PowerPoint loaded up there, and I believe you've got a clicker in your hand, I hope. And so we're ready to go.
Okay, I'm here to give an update on Sullivan East Middle School and West Ridge High School. And I will say that we do give updates monthly to the Board of Education, and I know that some of the commission members have attended that. And I will also personally say that if any one of the commissioners wants to go on a tour of any of these schools, I will personally walk you around and answer any questions that you have. It's actually a lot of fun to tour the sites, so I hope you would take me up on that. So we'll start first with Sullivan East Middle School. The project completion date is October of 2019, certificate of occupancy November of 2019, and school opening date after the Christmas break of January of 2020. We are on schedule to meet those dates, and we don't see any obstacles in our way that we could not meet those at this time. Of course, it is construction, so anything can happen. So I'll show you some pictures here. This is the rendering of the middle school, and so if you'll look at this and kind of remember what the colors are in the building materials, then you'll be able to see it under construction, and I can flip back to that if we need to show you under construction and then what it will look like. The site plan, just as a reminder, will the laser work?
I'm not sure.
Well, anyway, this is the campus overview, and so you can see to the right where it's in white is the building, and then to the left side is track and ball fields. And the way into the property is Weaver Pike, which is just off the bottom of the page there. And you come in off of Weaver and then enter into the school. You peel around to the right, and that would circle around the building, which is shown in white there. Or you could go straight and peel off to the left, which would be an upper level parking area and the athletic fields. So this is what it looks like. This picture was taken yesterday with a drone flight. You can see in the background, the upper left is the building. The area that, if you squint a little bit, that has a red roof on it right now, that's just an underlayment, that's not the final roof. That's the classroom portion, and then behind that, you'll see some concrete block going up. And then you'll see where I have labeled the track and the ball fields. So this is the front entry of the building. If you kind of remember back to where we had the rendering, you'll see to the right-hand side, this is the finished brick, and then there are some openings there for windows. In the middle portion is the actual front entry, and above the entry is what we call a discovery porch, which is an outdoor learning area. And then to the left side of it, you'll see a yellow, which is spray foam insulation. So now we are moving around the side of the building. You can get a little better angle of what is happening here. You see a little brick along the bottom, and again, that spray foam insulation. And just in the background is the concrete block wall of the gym. So now we're flying around the backside, and these walls are the gym, and then in the forefront of the gym wall will be locker rooms. And then we are now rotating around. This side is the cafeteria and the learning commons, and then in the background is the classroom wing, and you can see on the left-hand side we're starting some brick there. So we're really making some good progress here. On the inside of the building, this is you're starting to see some drywall, and we are in the ceiling we have the electrical, mechanical, plumbing, sprinklers going. This is the stairs. We have 3 main stairs in the classroom building, so one on each end and one in the middle, and those are installed. And then this is the main office area. And this is a typical science classroom. So you can see the drywall here, and it's a pretty good size. You can see natural light. All the classrooms have great natural light and windows. Science classrooms are a little bigger than the other classrooms. And in between the 2 science classrooms is prep areas. This is the 2nd floor corridor. So in this corridor, you can see that we've already started painting the block walls. And here is a close-up of the exterior brick. And again, you can see openings. There will be future windows. So this is a shot of the discovery porch. This is an area where we'll have outdoor classrooms, and that's, I think, a $1 million view there. It's absolutely gorgeous. So to bring you up to date on some milestones that we have coming up, we have athletic fields that we're anticipating rough grading will be complete in 2 weeks. We will have a retaining wall that is underneath the track area that will be done next week. Our mass grading contract we expect to have complete in 1 month, and we expect to have the roofing complete late May. The brick veneer will be finished around the classroom building in late May, and the gym CMU will be complete late April, and all structural steel decking will be complete late May, and then we hope to start paving in June. So moving on to where we are on West Ridge High School. West Ridge High School, the projected completion date is December of 2020, with the certificate of occupancy not too long past that. We do have some areas that, like the field house and athletic fields, that might be a little bit later than that, but we will anticipate the opening in the fall of 2021. The overall rendering, this is the concept of the exterior of the building. and the campus overview. So you'll see in the brown area is the actual building, and then the lighter gray is parking around the building, the entry road, and you'll see a circle there as you come in. That's a roundabout that you would peel off to the left, and there will be a bus drop off and some student parking. You peel around to the right, and that would be going towards the stadium and more student parking. And then the green areas are ball fields, stadium, and track, band practice field, tennis courts, and soccer. So as you drive into the site now, we have the roundabout paved with a binder coat. The circle in the middle is going to be landscaped, and the top view is looking towards the school site, and the bottom view is looking back towards Lynn Road. So this is the floor plan, and just to orient you a little bit, at the bottom of the page is what we call the lower level slab, and the top of the page is the upper level slab. So the pictures that I'm going to show you are from the lower level slab, and this building is large enough in that we've divided it up into 10 separate buildings, and the way that we proceed with construction is we'll start on what we call building A2 and A1 and so forth. And so we go through and we'll put in underground utilities and then prep the slab and pour the slab and then erect the steel and so forth that way. So the construction pictures are going to show you where we are to date. Right now, this is building A2, and what you'll see is the slab that's poured. And in the background, you can see some plumbing that is underground utilities and so forth that will be in the building behind it, which is building B. So we're panning across the site now, and this will kind of give you an idea of how big the slab is. So this is one side of the high school, and then this is the other side, which is building A1. And go back one. Okay, so this is the other side. I showed you A2, and then you have A1. That's all one big slab. And then up in the on the right side is still some more of building A1 slab to be poured. And that's what I showed you just a minute ago. So you can see there where it's roughed in. The buildings that you see there are Connex boxes, storage for construction materials and so forth. And then now this is looking towards the future stadium. And this is looking back towards the main entry. So where we are now is we're on the near the construction trailer, and you can just see over the hill the traffic circle or the roundabout, and that will be out towards the main entry. This is zoomed in on corridor A2, which is the building slab that we showed you, the building A2. So we are laying up block. This picture was taken yesterday. And this is our first door frame being installed. So everything we do is a little milestone. We were thrilled whenever we could start footings, thrilled whenever we started pouring the slab, and when we started the masonry and the door frame and everything is a milestone. And today, of course it was a beautiful day, so they've come up even higher with the block, and last time I looked at the camera, we had 3 door frames set, so every little bit is some great progress. So some milestones that we have coming up on the high school is we have a bridge crane that is supposed to be delivered on Saturday, and that will be the crane that's used to set the steel. We have 750 tons of steel coming to the job site, and about 75% of that is already fabricated. We have 450,000 units of concrete masonry units, and that is a lot. So we have steel bar joists delivered April 18th, and that'll be followed by structural steel, and I believe there are 9 tractor trailer loads full of steel. We will set columns the week of April 22nd, and we have 10,600 cubic yards of concrete. and we have about $10 million worth of materials already either on site or in fabrication or ordered. The project team, I have heard some misinformation on what the project team is and who the project team are, so I want to make sure everybody understands that. At East Middle School, we have 2 construction contracts. We have one contract for mass grading, and that is Baker's Construction and Excavation. And we have another contract for Burwell Construction. So I had reported earlier that the mass grading portion of the contract will hopefully be finished in a month, but Baker's is also a subcontractor to Burwell on the fine grading. So the difference between mass grading and fine grading is just what it says. Mass grading is cutting large masses of dirt and filling large masses of dirt. Fine grading is fine, like doing subgrades around parking, sidewalks, that kind of thing. And the same thing is true for Westridge High School. The mass grading contractor is East Tennessee Turf and Landscape, and the general contractor is J.E. Street and Associates. East Tennessee is doing the mass grading, and they're also doing fine grading for J.E. Street and Associates. And I wanted everyone to understand how big of an impact this is to the community as far as the number of people that are working on these job sites and that touch these schools. So at East Middle School, any particular day, we have over 100 people working on that job site. And at Westridge High School right now, of course, we don't have all the trades on, but we've probably got somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 75 workers. Whenever this gets into full swing and we have all of our different trades out there, we'll have a couple of hundred men and women out there on the job site. And our design team and engineers represents about 50 people. So if you look at how many people are working on these 2 schools in this county, you're looking at giving 300 or 400 people opportunities for employment. And as one of those, I thank you very much for that. So that's all I have.
Thank you, and I know you do have plenty to catch, but Evelyn will answer any questions about the construction and about the structure and everything. I'm sure Steve's here. Steve Wilson's in the back. Deneen, thank you, and I hope you have a safe trip to Denmark, and I hope I get to go back one day too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We have Mr. Glover. Did you have a follow-up to that, or I've got 2 people that want to be recognized?
Let me say one more thing.
Okay.
And thank you very much for allowing Architect West. But also like to recognize Jim Street, who is here as well this evening, who is the lead contractor on the high school. And I would just applaud the efforts of both of our contractors, J.A. Street and Burwell. They're doing a great job, so I thank them very much for that. I would like to go back to your question, Commissioner Glover, that you've asked about the renovation.
Let me clarify one thing on the east renovation.
Yes,
You're talking about the roof that was put. That roof was put on before this bond issue was brought out. So that roof has nothing to do with this bond issue.
Well, and I think what I was pulling from, if I may, is during the past 4 years, the amount of money that we've spent at East High School, because I did want that to be noted, that we had spent $270,000. We spent a little over $2 million, and I'm happy to give you that itemized list as well. Going back to your initial question, when the original document was put out, I believe that was dated May 15th or May 25th. I think it's May 15th, 2015. And those budget estimates were in there. Those were budget estimates at that time. Here we are, 2.5, 3 years later, making budgets work. Costs changed. I think, I think there were amounts that were estimated that didn't work. And I will say I have tried very, very hard to make that budget work in the way that I would have hoped it would have made everyone happy.
Well, I will tell you, people in our district, they're not happy. And I appreciate and I applaud what you've tried to do, but this was done, I think, back in 2016 is what I see here, 15, 16. And that was, renovation cost back then for East High School was $8 million. And it says the initial early phases of the facility plan specify building a new East Zone Middle School, which that's what you're doing, to serve 700 students in the eastern part of the county, starting in the fall of 2018. Mary Hughes will serve as all elementary students. That's going to happen. And the 3 existing middle schools will be consolidated into the new middle school. Sullivan East High School will undergo extensive renovations and offer expanded CTE programs that are not available in the proposed programs of the other high school. The final phase of the plan will replace Mary Hughes facility with a new elementary school. The new elementary school for Mary Hughes, I understand, is 2022, I think is what it shows on here, from what I understand. But that's what the community is asking us as commissioners. I'm sure Commissioner King's probably getting the same questions I am. When's the extensive renovations going to take place for Sullivan East, for Sullivan Central, and for Sullivan South? We have no money, and from what I see in this facilities, in the numbers that you gave me, you're $2 million over budget on the middle school, $2,077,274.98. You're $5,032,069.51 over budget on the high school, and you got 3 door facings up. I don't understand where the rest of this money is going to come from. It is zeroed out. It's completely zeroed out. And then on the next page, you used almost a little over $7.5 million of your operating budget and your reserve account. I just don't see the numbers adding up to do what we're proposing to do with these 2 schools. And that's what throwed the red flag up to me, and a lot of other folks too. We've got some concrete down, we've got some block slate, and we've got some door facings put up, and we're $5 million over budget. And I just don't see where the rest of the money is going to come from to finish these 2 schools. Possibly, how much money do you have in your fund balance at this time?
We have about $6.5 million, but let me back up and respond to your question, Commissioner Glover. The monies needed to complete these 2 projects are available and are indicated on that spreadsheet that I gave you. There are encumbrances, there are some monies that have already been expended, but there's no plan to spend more toward this building infrastructure than what you already see on those papers. Now, yes, we did come back. We did ask to spend $4.808 million of our fund balance back last fall for athletic facilities at West Ridge. We also isolated the $1,025,200 out of the designated restricted account to go toward the sewer. We also will have, well, let me just leave it at that. Yes, but those monies, there's no plan on my part, nor do I see a plan on the board's part to come back to this commission to ask for additional monies to complete these 2 projects.
So what's going to happen, you're still doing the mass grading at the high school. Does that mean if we have another dropout or if we have another major problem there, that we're going to be cutting from the school itself in change orders?
No. If you'll, on the first page, we still have in that contingency $742,000. So those figures are still, those dollars are still sitting there. Some of these items, these are still estimates within. They're estimated variable costs that we had within that budget. So those are still there.
Well, when you go to the next page and you add all this up, it shows that we're $5,032,000 over.
And 4.808 of that is for the athletic facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these dollars were expended early on before, as we were getting, before we got the bond money, as we were trying to get, I came in February of 2016 and talked to the board, to the commission then about the potential of building the 2 new schools. After that, I was asked to get some information, some numbers together to give the commission an idea of the building cost. And we did expend some dollars then to get some of those, to get that information together, to make the best effort that I could to stay within those dollars and get those estimates. So some of those dollars happened prior to that.
When I look at what you had available here, what you just told me that you had available, and when you take all that out, that's going to leave you right on the razor thin edge of being accountable with the amounts that you need to keep in your fund balance. And if you have one more problem, I don't understand where the rest of this money's going to come from, unless it's change orders. It has to be change orders on the middle school or change orders on the high school itself. And if we had that money set aside for the high school the other day, I don't understand why we've done $313,000 or $14,000 worth of change orders. When you take $313, or say you take $500,000 in change orders from a school, you're taking the value of that school back. You're not giving the taxpayers what they were promised. And that's some of the questions that I've had, and some other folks have got too. Cut the heating and air warranty back from a 5-year warranty to a 2-year warranty. We've cut the piping back on the system to cheaper type piping to save money. And when I look at this facilities, well, not the facilities plan, but the budget items, if we go back to the middle school, we look at the turn lane, you got in the GP reserve account for $246,307. The highway department looked at that for us and was asked to do it. The best estimate they come back with was $450,000. And I understand now that has to be turned over to an engineering firm to do an engineering study on that, to move forward with that. You've got $246,000 budgeted for that, but I've been told that could run anywhere from $800,000 to $1 million.
I actually have a change order that was prepared by Burwell that is exactly that figure, the 246, where they would do that work. That engineering piece has already been done, and I actually have that with me if you want to see that later.
So you are going to be able to get the turn lane put in for $246,000.
That's what Burwell has given us in the change order that they will do it for. We also have it out to bid right now in hopes that we will get it done even cheaper. I also, I haven't gotten an estimate from the highway department, so that's something you have that I don't.
That was just a ballpark figure, like I said, from what I understand, was about $450, $455. And if we do an engineering study on that, and that being a state highway, and have to do it to state specifications, we're hearing estimates over $800,000. Which I
That's
hope it's
not the estimate, that's not the, and what I have is not an estimate. What I have is actually a change order stating they will do the work to specifications.
So we're gonna do a $246,000 change order on the middle school to do the turning lane?
If that's the lowest bid, and that's where it would go, and that would come out of that 1.3 reserve that was set up last summer for the new schools, where the $1,025,000 for the sewer came from.
So you used the rest of the money that was set up for the sewer to use it for the turning lane and expenditures there?
There's approximately $275,000 left in there that would cover the turn lane. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's.
We have a couple of commissioners that have questions.
Okay.
If it's all right with you.
That'd be great.
Commissioner Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you for being here, Ms. Rafalowski. But before I ask you a question, there's a couple things that need to be cleared up. Not on your end, just general misconceptions. To start with, it was stated previously that the property was purchased for the high school before the plan was voted on. That's simply not true. It was purchased after the plan for a price well above the market value. Another thing, was mentioned that, and not in these chambers, but was referred to earlier, that if we ask questions, we'll get them answered. And again, no reflection on you. We asked where the $750,000 went that was budgeted to the sewer, and the answer was it got absorbed. So that's not really an answer. So as far as if that's being petty, then I'm with Mr. Glover. I'm petty too, because $750,000 of taxpayer money is important to me. Those issues just needed to be cleared up because a lot of folks are throwing out misinformation. And when this plan passed that December, and those of you that were on the commission at the time will remember, I said the numbers didn't add up when it passed. Now folks are trying to make numbers add up that they can't. The renovations to going to south, central, and east, if you notice, they're not in that paper.
No.
They're not there. We are short that much money. The more important thing, and I don't want to be accused of, and again, Ms. Rafalowski didn't have a vote in any of this. All she is the person that's having to do the best she can. This is no reflection upon her or the job she's doing. This is a situation she's having to deal with. And she and I have been talking about money and how it comes. And I don't know if you folks caught this or not, but she was referring to this balance and that balance and that balance. It was over 13 million. That is my biggest concern, because we were told in my area, and everybody in here is concerned about their areas because that's who their voters, that's where they're at. We were told in my area that whenever we closed schools, it would save money. In 2011, 2012, before Kingsley, Cedar Grove, and Brookside were closed, they were still open, the budget was $83,193,015. And the school system had 11,179 students. 2017-18, the budget was $84,615,783 with 9,792 students. Think about that and let that settle in a little bit. That's a difference of 1.4 million more with several hundred students less. That's where the 13 million come from that they're trying to make this mesh with. Folks, we can't afford to keep filling empty seats. The taxpayers can't afford it. And this entire plan has not been economically feasible out of the gate. They don't want to call them sinkholes. They want to call it construction dropouts. Whatever it is, it's costing money to fix it. One thing that wasn't addressed, and this is the question I had, and it took me a minute to get to it because we had the background, was East Tennessee landscaping. If memory serves me correctly, which it may not because I'm over 50, it seems like their contract was for right around $2 million. And I'm just wondering how far over budget their contract is right now. Because I know it has to be with everything they've had to do. Do you have the number, what they're actually paying them right now? And then after that, if you've got to add those up, I've got another question for someone else. Something that's confusing to me, I've got a little bit of a construction background, obviously not as the folks in here, but I've built one or two things. Why would you not pay the middle school to the last thing and pay the high school the first thing? I'm confused about that behavior. Is there a good explanation why the high school's, that's already paid?
The entry coming into the high school.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. The rain, the weather made it most difficult to get in and out. And that was a choice that the construction, Mr. Street, that's a choice that they made. I can ask Mr. Hubbard to address that for you if you'd like, but I believe it was because of the weather. There was a couple of days that I even attempted to, go up to the site, but the road was wet and a little difficult to maneuver. So I think it was for that reason, but would that be the reason that it was paid?
I understand.
Yes.
I've been in similar situations. We use big fill rock and then little rock on top of them.
And that's what they've done
you know?
at the middle school is big fill rock and then little rock.
Right, I understand that.
And
My concern is that's just gonna drive the cost up that much more because that will obviously have to be repaid, once you get the delivery trucks back and forth. But anyway, back to the East Tennessee landscaping and
I need a few minutes on that.
okay, that's
Okay.
fine. That's
So,
fine.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and for the record, I don't need to tell you this publicly, but we go way back. And if I've ever hurt your feelings, I had no intention to. And thank you for all your help.
It has taken a long time to get to the point where you don't take things personally. This is, it's a challenge. It has been a challenge. I wish I was standing here today and I said, we're $2 million under budget. I don't know that any of the projects were under budget. I think, but again, I have to be concerned with the two projects that we've got going. I hope that when these two projects are done, that you're proud of them and the communities are proud of them. We tried very hard. There were things that we wanted and that I fought for to try to keep in these budgets. And I'll go back to your comment, Mr. Broughton, because I want to answer that. When we talked about, and I used the word absorb, so it's there. But I felt like it was extremely important that this new high school have 2 gyms because of the size of the school and the number of athletics and the activities. So I pushed hard to keep that second gym in the school, regardless of whether that's a good thing, bad thing, or people agree with me. I pushed hard to keep the 9-lane competition track at the middle school because that was going to be a shared facility between the high school and the middle school. We don't have the space at the high school to enlarge that track. So that was another piece that we pushed hard to have. We pushed hard to keep some spaces that I felt like were real pluses in both of these buildings. So I continue to work daily and nightly on trying, and I think it will work. I don't see anyone coming back up here and saying we need new monies. We need anything other than what we have in this budget. So
explain to me how. Explain to me how you're going to pull this off.
I had, actually, if I could, Mr. Broughton still recognized, and I'll get to you.
Thank you. And you can just give me those numbers from East Tennessee when you can. That's fine, yeah, because tonight we can't vote on anything anyway. We're just having an open discussion. You know, and something else, and once again, I'm aware these are situations out of your control. You know, what are we doing as far as the runoff and the situation from the creek and from the backfield and everything else? How much is that increasing this situation?
That has not increased our cost any, but I want to bring the expert up to talk about that solution.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk about the finance piece, and that's not cost us any more money. In fact, I believe it was it Charlie, if you'll come up, was it TDOT or TDEC that came out and did that extra work? Who was it?
TDEC. No, TDOT done the work.
TDOT actually came out and did some work there at their own expense because they found that the culvert was actually broken.
Okay.
So they did work there. If you go out there, you'll see that work, but that was of no expense to us.
How much is it when they put the backfill into the, whatever you want to call them, anomalies, sinkholes, dropouts, whatever you want to call them? How much is it when they backfill those, and how much money has been spent on the backfill so far?
Those can vary. You know, if it could, I think we had, at one point we had maybe $13,000 invested in several. So it varies depending upon what it is. And so far, I can't give you that exact figure, but I can get it for you.
Well, and Mr. Hubbard, you know, you and I go a long way back. Thank you for being here. Are any of those anomalies, I've heard and seen reports that they're actually in an area where the floor is, which concerns me because of the recent, a few years back, Love Chapel situation. You know, we don't want to build a big fancy high school and then 2 years later it's sink in, like what happened in Unicoi. That's a real concern to me.
One small one.
One small one is in the main area?
It's back in toward the cafeteria area, but it has not increased any in 2.5 months. None of them have since we've sort of got into dry weather. Okay? Refer back to what you all call them paving. It's not the actual paving, it is a construction binder. Okay? You don't realize TDEC will only allow us to uncover so much earth at a time down there. So once we pour a pad, once we put gravel down, once we put the binder down, some of the slope out there, they've already seeded it back with grass. So that subtracts off that we can open up to have more room to lay down. As far as what you call the runoff and stuff, a lot of that was coming from the median of the interstate. And when TDEC came and done the investigation, I made mention that there was a culvert coming off the interstate. And you can go there and see now where the TDOT come in and redid all of that and instead of concreting it back where the culvert had washed out, they put riprap in and they actually cleaned out a lot of the ditch lines and stuff like that. So that was a TDOT thing, it was their project, their baby.
When TDOT was working, and I had people call me about this because that's in our area, when TDOT was up there working on 81, was there any connection between that and the property that the school's being constructed on?
Who's to say? It's over a mile by the way a bird would fly, you know. I had a place at Kettering, you know what I'm aware of there. I mean, it happened every, Johnson City had one.
Right.
You know, we've had several, it's just the wet, soggy weather, you know what I mean?
All right, thank you. Mr. Glover, thank you.
Thank you. Herschel, you're always recognized as a sponsor. We do have.
Evelyn, when we go through these, figures, and I guess what really throws a red flag up to me on all this stuff in here is really what hurts you guys with the purchase of the properties and what you're paying for architect fees. Architect fees for the high school is you know, that's $2,310,105.36. And then down here at the bottom, we have another additional architect fees for $380,360. On the middle school, we're in the same situation there, $888,710. And then we go down to the bottom. I don't understand what all these additional architect fees are for. There's another $222,128. So that's a lot of red flags, but one of the biggest questions I've got here when I look through this is at the middle school, Define to me what technology and construction is.
Technology is cabling, Wi-Fi, hotspots, those kinds of things.
Originally, go ahead.
We have interactive TV panels in the schools.
Originally, the middle school was set to get $150,000 in technology and construction. Now they're down to $33,196. The technology and construction for the high school is $700,000. Now I know you got twice as many kids, but I don't understand that big a significant difference in that.
Well, there is a significant difference, and I'm happy to explain that. We applied for, as we do every year, and we continue to get it for all our schools, what is called E-rate funding. And E-rate funding is based upon free and reduced lunch rates in your schools. We got higher return for the middle school on the new construction with E-rate dollars than we did on the high school. So yes, you don't see those E-rate dollars there, which was about $300,000 that E-rate came in on that. So our portion of that was the $100 and some thousand that you see. The E-rate allocation for the high school won't be that much because their free and reduced lunch rate isn't as high. But that technology piece, there's more classrooms, there's more pieces that we're looking to work with at the high school. There's potential that it won't be $700,000. It could be less, which would be dollars left to go toward the contingency or otherwise. Mr. Wilson has asked to speak. He wants to talk about the architect and the land cost.
Mr. Wilson, you're recognized. Thank you for being here tonight, Steve.
No, I'm just going to sit right here.
I'm Steve Wilson with Spoden Wilson Consulting Engineers. We're your structural engineer on the projects, on both projects. Feel very blessed to have grown up here. I went to Central Heights Elementary, Bluntville Junior High, Sullivan Central High School, University of Tennessee, and I came back here to raise my family and live here. And I've been very blessed to do most of your consulting on most of Sullivan County's projects. I'm currently working on Vance Middle School on the Bristol project. Again, did the middle school structural engineering, did the high school structural engineering. Deneen West, the architect that was here with Kane Rash West, and the architectural team is Kane Rash West here locally in Kingsport, and LS3P Architects out of the Carolinas, and they're both in South Carolina and North Carolina. When you spoke to the architect's fees, I want to defend them a little bit, and I'm just a part of that overall fee. Your structural engineer gets a certain percentage of the overall architectural fee. Your mechanical engineer gets a certain percentage of the overall architectural fee. Your electrical engineer, your geotechnical engineer. If that geotechnical engineer is retained by the architectural firm. If they are retained by the county, then their fees come out of the county's portion. I don't want to quote the exact fees because I don't know the exact contracts. I only know what my contract is with the architectural design firms. But I do know this, the fees were very reasonable. They've certainly been in line with, equal to, or less than what Kingsport's paying for their fees. I know that doesn't necessarily matter, but also what Bristol's paying for their fees. And they're around the 5% range. And quite frankly, most jobs that occur in this area are around the 6% range, okay? So first of all, they're doing an enormous amount of work. And I realize all of us architects, engineers, people look at us and think we're overpaid. I don't think people realize the liability incurred. Because let's say I got $100,000 on this job and that's a $60 million job, and if one thing goes wrong and there's a lawsuit on it, or there is some element of the structure that fails, you can have a couple $1 million lawsuit over a fee that's less than 5% of what that amount could be. So there's an incredibly incurred liability of professional design services. Matter of fact, when I sit and reflect on it, I don't really know why we do what we do. okay, with the liability incurred, but we love what we do. I'm standing here to tell you, and I told Mr. King that I would, to look you two particularly in the eye because of the questions you've asked, and tell you that I can unequivocally tell you that these structures are being built as economically as possible. And I also want to reassure you, had architectural teams been selected out of the region, had engineers been selected out of the region, your cost would have been 10 or 15% more. I understand that that's not really in debate here, but the unit construction cost on these facilities and the fees you're paying are not really something to complain about. Okay? I'm not lecturing you, I'm just telling you. That all being said, Mr. Broughton brought up the dropouts and whatever we want to call them, and a lot of people don't like to use the word sinkhole or whatever. But the connotation here is, and I am not the geotechnical engineer on the project, but I have to deal with any of the remediations that might involve the structure, okay, on either site. Insofar as I know, Mr. Broughton, there is one small dropout related to the building footprint that would superimpose or juxtapose with some portion of the building on West Ridge High School thus far. The others have been either in yard areas or areas that might be near a drive, but I don't want to misrepresent those locations, but thus far they've been outside the building footprint. The one small one that is in the building footprint has been protected, has rock stacked around it so it can be identified, so it can be monitored. And it's my understanding, Geoservices is the geotechnical engineering professional on the job, and I've met with them with work sessions with the Board of Education. It's my understanding the remediation that's taken place thus far on any dropout that has occurred, and maybe it's only one that's been remediated, was remediated with flowable fill concrete. Flowable fill concrete is just a lean concrete that many times we specify 100 PSI concrete so it can be excavatable. A lot of times cities, municipalities, highway departments use it in street crossings or utility crossings so that you can get the utility in the ground, get it backfilled and traffic back on it the same day. So it is a lean concrete fix. That's what they've done thus far. Within the building footprint on that one that we continue to monitor, I anticipate that that one will get a geotextile liner and stone fill type remediation. So that if there ever is any trapped water or anything, trapped water during construction, trapped water migrating through capillary action through the soils or anything, that can be dissipated through the stone and through the geotextile in the hole. Russ Ashburn, the geotechnical engineer for Geoservices, gave a good explanation of what these dropouts are. And again, whether we want to call them a sinkhole, whether we want to call them an anomaly or whatever, his explanation was really good in that we're incredibly saturated this past year, as wet as I can remember. And as the water table that we all deal with, as the water table rises and comes up through fissures and cracks in all of our limestone karst formations that we have here, and quite frankly, whether you want to criticize these dropouts related to the site, there's not many places in East Tennessee we're going to go build a building this size we're not going to have dropouts, because we're sitting on a karst region of limestone and crevices and cracks between the rocks. The reason we don't experience it all the time in our yards or in our backyard or a next door neighbor's yard, we're not digging deep enough to hit them, okay? But here we're moving a lot of earth and we happen to hit them, but the water table rises, the water forms a dome of the soils in between the rock and the cracks, and then lo and behold we come along and excavate it, and then it's exposed, and then it drops. So that's really what's occurring in these locations. I, as the structural engineer on the project, at the board work session, asked that the geotechnical engineering firm, the contractor, the surveyor, and the grading contractor provide me with the exact location of that one dropout that's in the building footprint. I've been out there twice to look at that dropout so that I could see, and again, none of us can look in the dirt any better than the other, but to see if there have been any visible changes or any discernible changes or anything I can detect, and thus far, with naked eye, I can't detect anything. But they are monitoring. They're also monitoring the site. as related to where cut and fill are. They've been monitoring the site, surcharging the site. As far as, and again, you said right now only one door frame. Deneen West quoted for you 700 to 750 tons of steel. I started checking shop drawings, and I've checked every stick of steel that'll go in either one of these buildings. Not my people, not people that work for Spoden Wilson, I have checked them. And out of this 750 tons of steel in this high school, 70 to 75% of it has been fabricated. 9 loads are sitting on trailers to start delivering to the site. And there'll be loads following that to deliver to the site. And within next month, masonry is going to be going up, again, 450,000 block units. When you talk about concrete masonry units, it's just a fancy way for us engineers to say block. 450,000 units are going to go up. That's a lot of block. 10,600 yards, 10,700 yards of concrete are going to be going in, on the ground and in the air, because we got 2-story academic wings. And you got 2-story height gymnasium, cafeteria, commons area wings. We have bar joists that span 98 foot 4 inches in auditorium. We have joist girders that are 110 inches deep, spanning 115 feet. And that steel is going to be delivered to the site. We had a pre-construction meeting on the steel erection yesterday. We had a pre-construction meeting before they put an ounce of concrete in the ground, and we had a pre-construction meeting before they laid the first block. And we've had all those in the last 4 weeks. I'm telling you all this to tell you there's a whole lot of things in motion, and there's a whole lot of things being done right, being checked, being monitored, and you have adequate and proper design professionals looking after them. The fact that I was born and raised here, you know, sometimes you can't be a prophet in your own backyard. I'm just trying to be the messenger to look you in the eye and tell you the truth. There's a lot of talented people involved in this project. And I will also say this, Jim Street didn't ask me to. I work with Jim Street a great deal. J.A. Street and Associates are a wonderful contractor. And I can also tell you we're blessed that Burwell bid on the middle school project and was low bidder, and J.A. Street chose to bid on the high school project as low bidder, because all you have to do is look at the other bids and find out where we would have been if it had been out of town contractor, an out of town workforce, an out of town overhead, and out of town lodging and everything that was brought into this. You would see where those bids would have been. So I want to also tell you we're very blessed with the contractors we have. And the big difference is, Jim Street's right up the street. I live at 418 Cold Springs Road, Bluffville, Tennessee. My office is at 430 Clay Street, Kingsport, Tennessee. I'm working on Vance Middle School. I've done every PALS in the area. I've done every Eastman Credit Union in the area. I drive by them every day. I drive by them too many times. I drive by this side all the time. My girls went to Indian Springs Elementary, Holston Middle School, and Sullivan Central High School. So I'm telling you all this to reassure you. I understand your complaints are on money. And believe me, I wish that I could come up with a remedy of somehow cutting down your structural costs to save you another dime on this. But I promise you, this structure is complicated. But I defy you to go pick it apart and find a more economical way to build it, because we looked at about 10 different solutions on each building before we settled on what we did. So I'm just telling you, if poor little old boy from Bluffville is looking at it that way, you know, the mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, the architects, they all looked at it that way. Because again, Deneen West, Luther Kane, Hiram Rash, Pat Breeding are sitting in Sullivan Gardens, and they have to drive by this all the time as your architect. And Jim Street's right up the road, and he's building it, and he's putting his name on it, and he's putting his workforce out there. So I do, again, and Burwell is in Bristol, and they're building the middle school, and I hesitate to say this, and I am a little boy from Bluffville, and I'm gonna knock on wood. I don't think we've had a change order related to structure on the middle school yet. We did have some coordination issues. There might be change orders related to the middle school, but I don't think I've changed the structural element. I've added a beam, I've added a column. We did have a 2-inch adjustment in the Discovery Porch truss bearing that came about because of the methodology chosen to prefabricate the roof trusses there and the way their bearing seats coordinated with the structural steel frame. I can't guarantee you there won't be change orders on the high school. Ms. Rafalowski's giving you the numbers. There are contingencies. Contingencies are built into a project for a reason, because there's no project ever unfolds perfectly. We might not have another spring like we've had, or late winter like we've had in February again, and they might blow through this, and these projected schedules could ramp up. There could be time delays because all of a sudden we have the wettest fall we've ever had on record. But I will say this, as far as change orders related to dropouts or change orders related to the site, and again, I didn't do the civil engineering, Matter and Craig did. And Matter and Craig's name was brought up in the discussion, so I don't mind bringing that up. But when you're building and constructing a building, and you're designing a building from the top down, but you're constructing it from the ground up, we've about exposed that site to the most abuse it's ever going to have. I mean, we're loading it with materials, we're laying down materials, there's trucks coming in. And back to what Mr. Hubbard...
Hold on a minute. We're focusing on a dead horse here. Let me, the question I've got for you, weather has nothing to do with us being $5 million over budget. A wet spring or a wet winter, what has that got to do with us being $5 million over budget?
Well, it certainly contributed.
The rain and the wet weather, that was hindering the excavation work. That don't have nothing to do with us being over budget.
Well, it certainly contributed to change orders.
You're right. It contributed to the change orders. So from now on, through
well,
this
I
process,
think the change orders contribute to you heading toward more monies, but I wasn't arguing that.
No, I just,
okay.
That's fine.
We have a list, and I've got to assume the questions are for Ms. Rafalowski, Mr. Wilson. Thank you. And if you'll stay close there, some of these questions may be for you if you'll stay close, Steve. Mr. Van.
I got a question, Mr. Rafalowski. I want to make a point to Mr. Glover. He says we're over $5 million. This commission agreed to allow them to use 4.8 of that $5 million you're referring to be over for the athletic facilities, okay? So when you take what we knew we had to provide for the athletic facilities, they're only about $200,000 over compared. If you look at the 4.8 and the 5 million, so I don't think you can say they're over 5 million over budget. The question I have for Ms. Rafalowski, when you say the school system has $6.5 million in their fund balance, now that 6.5 does not include the 2-point-some million that you use to balance the budget each year, right?
Correct.
Okay. Plus
Hold
also.
Hold on. Yes, I'm correct.
Okay. So they're taking a little over $2 million a year that every year that they're not spending to allocate to make that 84.8. So actual cash on hand, you take the 6.5, you add the 2 million plus. Also in the cafeteria fund, you are headed towards somewhere in reserve in that account close to $1.5 million to 2 million. That's not included into that 6.5, correct?
Correct.
So if you look at that, they're actually got somewhere in the neighborhood 6.5, 2, and 2. They're around 10 to $11 million. They've taken the 5 million out. That made them at 16 million when the school started.
You agree?
So am I correct?
No.
Can you agree? Come up here, please. Let me make sure of one of the figures I want to validate.
I apologize if my voice cracks. It is absolutely freezing on that back row, so if I shiver, I'm sorry.
Come on, sit up here.
As soon as we get
hot
down
up here.
I don't want your seat. I mean,
So
the $6.5 million has already had the 4.8 taken out of it.
Right.
Now, the 2.5 that we used to balance the budget, that was just a budget figure, and it will not come out.
Right.
Actually, we hope that not a dime of that comes out, but that was used as a worst-case scenario. If we should lose everything we thought we would lose in a city-county split, and we spend every dime that we had, that's what we have to do. We have not spent every dime that we have in the general purpose budget. And we did not lose as much as we had predicted because it was a worst-case scenario for the city-county split. So you can't add that money back to that $6.5 million.
So it's not included in the 6.5? Is it included in the 6.5?
It was not taken out of the 6.5, but you can't add it back either. That was just a budgeted number.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So technically, 6.5 in your fund balance, you're not counting the 2.5 set aside from it.
That's right. It's not counting that 2.5, but we can't add it back to say that we've got $9 million. That's not the case, because that's a budget number to come out of fund balance, and you won't know that until the end of the year when you actually close your books out.
Okay, what about the cafeteria fund?
Cafeteria fund, you're exactly right on that. However, we can't use that for anything except for cafeteria expenses.
Or cafeteria supplies?
Right. So anything, because that is federal money. The county does not contribute to the cafeteria fund, so all those dimes have to go towards cafeteria expenses. So whether that be employees in our cafeteria department, or if that be equipment for cafeterias or food supplies for children, all of that goes together.
So you're about $8.5 million. $8.5 million.
If you want to count the cafeteria with it, you can.
I know what you can't use for. I'm just talking about $8.5 million.
And that is in undesignated fund balance.
Right.
That does not count any reserves.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. I know that Deneen had said way back a couple of years ago, whenever we were starting on the school plan, that they were going to do that the TDOT study for the roads going in and stuff would be done before the construction of the school. Was that done? I mean, what did?
We were required to do one at the middle school from TDOT. We were never required to do one at the high school, so there was never a study done at the high school.
Well, do you all have a transportation plan on how these kids are going to get to and from school safely?
We have, when you ask for a transportation plan, we have looked at our busing and our routes. And yes, we know what that is beginning to look like and what we've always thought it was going to look like.
Is there an increase on that, on your transportation?
No, there is not.
So that includes the East Carters Valley kids and Blair's Gap kids going to the county school?
It does.
One of the areas that I feel like that needed to be addressed before the location of this school was ever decided upon was the roads that these kids has got to travel on to get there. If our number one priority is the safety of our kids, that should have been done first. And the congested traffic, especially in Colonial Heights, at exit 59, with just say if 200 kids out of the 1,700, if 200 people try to get on that exit there to get on the interstate, I mean, has anybody looked at that? Has anybody looked at the traffic getting on and off of Interstate 26 to 81? I mean, these are very concerning questions that I hear every day that has not been addressed. And that is very worrisome to me. And why was this not addressed? I mean, why was the board not address these questions before the location of the school?
I think there are several avenues that will be accessed to get to the new high school. Students will not be forced, or they don't have to do or travel via exit 59 to exit 63 to the school. Some certainly will choose to do that. Some do it today. We have students who leave Central and go to South for classes. that's a choice that a parent will make and a student who is driving. There are other avenues to get to this school site other than exit 59 to exit 63 via the interstate.
Well, we all know that, even I do, we take the quickest, fastest way to get there, especially if you're running late. And I just, this right here, we got Northeast State kids getting on. We got people going to the airport. And, we got that Henry Har with Lynn Road right there, that big huge hill and that intersection with the yield sign. And, people that live through there, I talk to them all the time that are customers of mine, and they're like, we can't even pass a bus on that road. How are we going to address all these teachers and kids driving up through here with the buses? And it's just, that's a very huge concern of mine.
And I would.
Has our battery gone out?
It doesn't matter. I think you all can hear me regardless.
You gotta have you on record.
I think, I certainly welcome a conversation with the highway department, with TDOT, to talk about these concerns that you have. I have sent emails to TDOT, and again, I'm very happy to be a part of those conversations.
Well, I think that this is something that needs to be addressed and needs to be done and completed before this school right here opens, to make sure that every kid gets there safely.
And Commissioner Stanley, I'd be happy to talk with you, and if you would like to shepherd that or initiate those,
I'll be more than
those
welcome.
Conversations with the highway department, TDOT, those are conversations I'm more than willing to participate in. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Starnes, you're recognized.
Ms. Rafalowski, I just want, first of all, thank you for all your service to Sullivan County. I know having Broughton in class it had to be rough. Is that true, Todd? Oh.
Mr. Broughton isn't paying attention to you. What I would say is,
but I do have a...
Mr. Broughton was a delight to have in class.
I do have a few questions. One, since that is paved, can we drive up in there and look around, or do we need to make an appointment or what?
You need to make an appointment because it is a construction site and it is a hard hat site. So the construction companies have plenty of hard hats on site. What I would ask that you do, and I would invite you to contact me or Mr. Hubbard, either one of us, and we will arrange to meet you and get you onto the site. The construction companies have a lot of traffic going on. I will tell you that sometimes you don't want to drive your vehicle onto those construction sites either. I've gotten several nails and tires on my car and several other things. So we try to make that convenient. And I want every one of you to come visit these sites. I am planning an event at the middle school. You'll get a flyer on it next Thursday night, where I'm inviting all of you, our board, and several others to actually lay a brick and be a part of the construction of that site. With the tutelage of the masons that are on site, so yes, the answer to your question is you can contact me via email or via phone. Same with Mr. Hubbard, and we'll make it work.
Going back to the sinkholes, why were only 15 core samples taken on a 150-acre site, or is my information correct? And why was only 15 core samples taken when we have so many dropouts or sinkholes or whatever you want to call them?
Well, I'm not the geotechnical engineer. I've said that before over here. I'm not an engineer, I'm an educator. And that was what was recommended.
Okay.
There was never a matter of you need to do 50 and, well, we can only afford this much. We did exactly what was recommended, that was done.
And when we say we have filled those, am I correct in saying that we're not guaranteed that they'll fall again?
Well, they've been monitored, and we've not seen any change in those.
Okay.
And I actually have sat through and listened to how those are remediated. And there are several people who watch those and who make sure that the remediation takes place. I'll go back to what Mr. Wilson said. There are professionals on those sites all day long. TDEC is checking geos, so there's a lot of activity going.
Okay.
Thank you. We've got two other questions. Ms. Rafalowski and then the sponsor, I think, wants to be recognized. So we have been on this a long time, and I just got a text that can we move? So.
And what I would say, Mayor Venable, and I don't think I've refused anyone ever that wanted to come.
I agree.
And have a meeting with me, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I may not get you the information as quickly as you'd like it, because I have a lot of responsibility, and especially in the spring when we have lots of activities going on in our schools. I wasn't here Tuesday night because I chose to be at East High School. We had a spectacular event there, and it was important. But, you know, you can get in touch with me. I'm happy to sit down with you. I told Commissioner Glover before the meeting, I'm happy to sit down with him and go over this spreadsheet in as much detail, more detail even as you want. So I'm very happy to do that.
Let's do these last two questions. Commissioner Broughton and then Commissioner King.
Thank you. What did you say we've spent so far on the high school and the middle school, because the numbers have kind of flexed a little bit?
The total overall that we've
Yes,
spent?
on the high school and the middle school separately, yes, ma'am.
Separately?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't give you that number exactly right now because of I could give you the total. But to say what the number is exactly, and Ingrid may have that for me, that we'll hand to you just here in a minute.
What is the total number then that's been spent?
The total altogether is we're 93 point something, and I'm looking for my number here.
We'll go at 93, that's okay. And what I was looking at, I actually have pictures of the facilities plan on my phone, and that's what I was looking up. The facilities plan stated that it was 65 and 20, which is 85 million. Therefore, we are $8 million over budget, without a doubt.
Yes.
Based upon the original facilities plan, which I'll be glad to forward if anybody wants it. That was just one thing I wanted to establish first. And something that everybody needed to pick up on, and I hope they did, was the millions and millions and millions of dollars and millions more laying around. How did they get there? That's from funding empty chairs. We need to remember that in the future. And the last thing I need to know about Mr. Wilson is the problem with the dropouts or the sinkholes or whatever you want to refer to them as, is one board member brought it up and he was about crucified for doing so. And when everybody bucked against it, then you wonder what they're hiding. No reflection on you. But when you know something for a fact and you're told it's wrong and you know better, that causes people to be skeptical.
Yes, and I appreciate your comment. I guess what I was trying to convey to this body, as your structural engineer on both these projects, I'm the one that needs to know it more than anybody. Okay, so I have tried to discern, ascertain any information I can about them. Thus far, I've not been alarmed by them because of their proximity, their location, or where they're at. There is one in the cafeteria portion of the high school. Insofar as I can determine from the drone aerials that Deneen has provided, and from what we've generally measured in the field, I do not believe it involves any foundation or any structural element that I would be concerned with other than slab on grade.
Fair enough this time, thank you.
As of right now. But that board member would tell you at the work session, I have requested exact location. I mean, surveyed and related to column grid and column line location, okay? But I want to point out, we've been in business 62 years. I've been doing this 33 years. We do about 180 projects a year. And I don't know that I've ever been on one that has not had some type of geotechnical issue related to things like this in this region. It is just what we're dealing with, okay? I'm not defending the fact that these are happening. I'm not glossing them over, but they can happen in your backyard. They can happen in mine. They can happen in your driveway. They can happen in XYZ County Road in this area, and I've seen them happen. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I would add to that is from time to time, people get on the site with after hours, take pictures of things. The next thing I know, I've got a picture of something that's a dropout. I'm chasing that down, trying to figure it out, and it's not a dropout. So I think having accurate information is important as well.
It is, thank you.
Mr. King, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not here, I could pick figures apart and we could throw figures out here all night. If anybody in this room has ever built a house and you had a loan, or if you had the cash money to pay for it, and then you had a contractor, you was interested in what was going on. You wanted to go see the progress. You wanted to see the house going up. You wanted to see the foundation. What was going on? That's where we're at. And to me, the biggest thing that concern that I've had, and the biggest, I guess, disappointment was we haven't had information coming to this body. We would represent the taxpayers of Sullivan County. Each one of us was voted in by the taxpayers of Sullivan County. The taxpayers is the one that put up the $140 million to build these two schools. And I think we all want to be proud of these schools. Whether we like it in that particular field or wherever it's at, it's going to be built and it's going to be here. So to say that I grandstand in doing this, I'm not grandstanding. All I'm doing is trying to protect the taxpayers of Sullivan County to make sure that through us and our money and the funding that we get a school or two schools that we can be proud of, and they're the top-notch quality that we're paying for. That's all we're doing. And we're not here to bash Miss Evelyn Ravlowski. She works for the school board. She's got the hardest job of anybody over there. And you have to come up and really, to be honest with you, if I was you, I don't know if I'd come, because the school board is the one that makes these decisions. They're the ones that votes on it, and then they throw it in your lap to come over here and you know, represent them. And that is a problem to me. If they're going to make these decisions, if they're going to do all what they're doing, then they ought to stand up and be accountable for it.
Well, and what I would say there, Mr. King, is I'm a part of that decision-making. I'm a part of that decision-making process. And I'm here. I'll be here every month. I am here every month. A work session and the board meeting. I would love to have you and Commissioner Glover and anybody else meet me at the middle school tomorrow and let you look at the quality and see the craftsmanship going on in that building. So
I don't have a question with craftsmanship. I know J Street, I know what kind of buildings, I know Steve Wilson, I know what he does. I've worked with him. We just got done building an ag center, and both of those companies work there. And I know what kind of, that's not the problem, you know.
And if I, my communication skills have obviously been lacking, so I'll do my best to improve those.
And that's, I think this would never come about, I don't think, if we would have been getting information coming from the school board to us.
And I'm happy to do a better job.
And that's what has really frustrated me about all this. And, you know, and some petty things that's going on, and that really irritated me when one of your school board members said that I was a dumb logger and I need to take care of my logging and let him take care of building schools. Now that really bothered me. Because now let me finish this.
Yes,
for one thing, I know a little bit about building. I spent 5 years, 1 year that I probably should have stayed home, but anyway, I got a degree in industrial technology and emphasis in building construction, so I know a little bit about it. I've been in business for 39 years, and 90% of my business is building roads to get tractor and trailers in some of the god-awful places you ever seen. So I know a little about it. And when somebody says that about me and my integrity, then I've got a problem with that. And also when they get on TV and said that, oh, there are some people trying to stop this school, and that's the only reason they're banned, get them in grandstanding, I've got a problem with that. And that should never, that shows character. And that character shouldn't be like that. And that bothers me.
I believe you've got that on the record, Mr.
I'm done.
Mr. Wilson, you're recognized. I'm going to recognize Herschel to end this up.
One of the examples I like to make about what Dwight's talking about, if you look on that last page where it says sewer pump station property, $2,687. Chairman Hughes took it up on himself to get you guys to purchase this piece of property to put a lift station on. If you guys would have come to us and communicated with us, that money right there, $2,000 and some dollars, might not mean a lot to some people, but some people that is a lot. So there's a piece of property laying on the Weaver Pike that might be in the same situation for years to come, not being utilized for nothing because somebody made a boneheaded decision to move forward and do something like that. And that $2,800 or $2,600 some dollars, that might have provided a computer for a kid in one of these schools. So that's the examples that we're talking about. And getting back to what we first started about, I still don't see anywhere in this financial statement the money for the renovations. It's not there. We're going to get this high school done. We're going to put middle school kids in Sullivan South. There's not a dollar to renovate for them. We're going to put middle school kids in Sullivan Central. There's not a dollar to renovate for them. And now, and you might clarify this for me, no kitchen equipment for the high school. We've got a $68 million building sitting there, and we're not going to have kitchen equipment in it. So, can you explain to me where that money's coming, or where that equipment's going to come from?
Well, we will have kitchen equipment. Let me go back to the piece of property.
I know you're saying we will have kitchen equipment, but where is it coming from?
We will take it out of our equipment budget in the kitchen for their school nutrition. We have equipment that we spend, we just bought equipment for the east kitchen.
Yeah, okay.
And as we go through this budget, if we still, you commented on the $700,000, if we don't spend all that $700,000, then there's money left there for the kitchen equipment. Going back to the piece of property, that was a design by Mattern and Craig. That area where we were directed to, that came to us via Mattern and Craig.
But there again, School Board Chairman Hughes was the one that pushed that issue to have that done. And if he would have come here and spoke to us and told us what he was doing. You see what we done to help, just like I was referring to when we first started this. We got East High School hooked onto a sewer, and it's not costing the school department a dime, not a penny. Nothing. And getting back to I was referred to as a dumb farmer, that I just need to stick to farming. Well, we started a small business 20 years ago from scratch. So and I've got something here, and I'm going to go ahead and lay it out here, right here in my hand. This is an amendment that I want to put in that resolution to put a vote of no confidence in your school board chairman for not coming here and explaining things to us and not coming here being accountable for it. It's a shame that you're the one that has to carry his mistakes. And like you said, you're part of that. You know, it's your job.
This is my job. You're exactly right. It's my job to be here. I will continue to be here. And I will continue to do the best job that I can possibly do to lead this school system. So thank you.
And like I said, when I first started, every single one of these commissioners I consider as my friends. And there's nobody in here at grandstands. We do the best we can to help every single department that we represent as a whole. And like I said, I want you to get me the numbers of how we're going to fund Sullivan South High School for those middle school kids, Sullivan Central for those middle school kids, and I want to know what we're going to do about Sullivan East.
And I'm happy to meet with you, Mr. Glover.
And I want you to come back before this board and meet with all of us. Is there any way that we can have those numbers by next Thursday night when we vote on this?
I'll do my best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would say thank you, Commission. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity this evening.
We appreciate your being here and your perseverance and let me just say I admire what you've done in very difficult times. Steve, did you want to make a closing comment, Steve?
Ms. Rafalowski and I talked about it briefly. I just spoke with Mr. Street. I wanted to make a suggestion, but I wanted to back up and say something. I am so grateful and thankful to have been involved in these jobs. I consider it a privilege to work for Sullivan County, and there's no one respects this body. Again, I grew up in this place, and I remember sitting in a room back in the other part of the building when there were 48 magistrates, and I was a little kid wondering on what on earth they were talking about. So I have a great deal of respect for the two gentlemen that someone referred to in the means they just mentioned. I have a great deal of respect for both those gentlemen, and I fully understand where they're coming from. I'm here to reassure you that I truly feel professionally everything's being done that it possibly can to preserve and protect the safety and welfare of the public. That being said, I would encourage that we might consider a field trip to either one of these sites, but particularly the high school. It would actually be more manageable if we could get this whole body to come together. I asked Mr. Street if it was possible. I mean, this land, these sites belong to Sullivan County, but right now contractually, the control of these sites belong to each of the contractors that are under contract. So safety is paramount. And so it's probably better either we arrange for a third of this body to go, another third, and another third, or all at once. But perhaps that could happen after work hours. Now that we're in a time where we don't get dark till close to 9, as we're fast approaching that, I would encourage a field trip with us design professionals, Ms. Rafalowski, whomever wants to come from Board of Education and tour these sites.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the invitation, and I would mention that we've been invited in May to the Love Ramsey Agricultural Center by the Sullivan County Cattlemen's Association to meet there for a work session, and they've actually mentioned food, and I'll ask you all to consider that, and maybe that's something we can do. We can do that field trip while we're after we meet at the Ag Center. So it is right now 6 minutes of 9 o'clock. We have a full agenda awaiting us. We have been here 2 hours and 56 minutes, 54 minutes. I don't know about you, I'd like to have a break, so you're gonna take one. Be back here at 9:15 and we'll zip through this agenda.